In 1945, while digging, miners in Egypt made a discovery that changed the world when they discovered ancient manuscripts. Today, these manuscripts are called the Nag Hammadi Library, and they're part of a religion called Gnosticism, whose followers are called Gnostics. And the manuscripts they found have names like the Secret Book of John, the Gospel of Philip, the Gospel of Mary, On the Origin of the World, and many more. And they tell a very different version of the creation story found in the Bible, which I believe is more accurate. They did not believe Jesus was the Son of the God that created the world. They believed he was the son of a being that existed before the God that created the world existed. And they believed the God that monotheistic religions worshipped is evil and a lesser deity, and Gnostic scriptures usually call him Yaldabaoth. But sometimes Gnostic scriptures call him God, and he is also known as the Demiurge. And he is described looking like a snake with a lion's head. The Gnostic scriptures do say he has the ability to shapeshift into different forms. And they say billions of beings existed before him. And the Gnostics believed Jesus' body was a hallucination, and he is a spiritual being sent to the world to save it, though they did not believe he was sent by God, but they believed he came to the world to save it from God, because they believed that the God monotheistic religions worshipped is actually an evil, lesser God, and not the true one, and that forced the apostles mistake Jesus for being the Son of the God that created the world, but later Jesus reveals to them that he is not the Son of the God that created the world, but he is from a different being that existed before him, and he has come to save it from him and teach people secret knowledge. And the Gnostics believe that spirits of humans existed before the creation of the world. They only believe that God created humans' bodies and not their spirits. They believe human spirits used to be more powerful than their creators, and that they're imprisoned in this false world which was created by the Demiurge, the false god. They believe that spirits are divine beings imprisoned in this false reality which the Demiurge created. And they believe that we have more power than him and his minions, but we are in lack of knowledge, so we are less powerful. And they believe that this world we live in is an illusion and an imperfect reflection of the true spiritual world. And this world is a prison for spirits. Unlike some religions, Gnosticism has been lost for hundreds of years until the manuscripts are eventually rediscovered. It is a combination of Eastern and Western religions. The Gnostics believed that knowledge was powerful, and the goal of Gnosticism was to find our true spiritual purpose and inner peace and achieve secret knowledge and sacred wisdom. And the Gnostics believed after people die, the spirits are reincarnated into people or animals. And they believed that reincarnation was created by the Demiurge to imprison spirits in this false reality that we live in. And if people achieve secret knowledge when they die, they will escape from the prison of reincarnation and become supreme, divine, spiritual beings and enter into the afterlife and be at peace for eternity. Not to say that Gnostics didn't believe in hell, because it is mentioned in their scriptures. I think that they believed that hell did not last forever, that people only stayed there for a certain amount of time to be punished, and then afterwards they are later reincarnated. There are also many religions that originate from Gnosticism, like Marcionism, Catharism, Setianism, Valentinianism, and more. And one of these religions, called Marcionism, who was founded by Marcion, believed that the God of the New Testament and the God of the Old Testament are actually different beings. If you don't know what the New and Old Testaments are, they're two different sections of the Bible. The Old Testament, Jesus isn't mentioned, and the New Testament, he is. And these Gnostic philosophers taught that the God of the New Testament was a loving and compassionate being, unlike the God of the Old Testament, who was an angry and hateful being. Because if you read the New Testament, the God in it sounds much more loving and compassionate, unlike the one of the Old Testament, who was hateful and angry all the time. Not saying every single time God is mentioned in the New Testament it is referring to the true God, but sometimes it refers to the demiurge. Because Marcion did not believe the being Jesus called God was the God that created the world. He believed it was a being that existed before him. And Jesus in the New Testament is against following the traditions of the Jews. Why is this? Because he came here to save people from the false god. And that's why Jesus was put to death. It's because he was telling people not to follow their telling the Jews not to follow their religious traditions. And Catharism is another religion that originates from Gnosticism, and they believe Satan created the world and imprisoned souls in reincarnation. It's interesting that they identify Satan as being the demiurge. The Gnostics believed in a supreme force that exists prior to all gods and worlds and superior to everything, called the One, also known as the Monad and the All. These names are just given to it, so people have something to call it. Its true nature does not have a name because it is unnameable. It is not right to think of it as a god or something similar to a god because it is far greater than a god. It is sometimes referred to as a he. This is more of an anthropomorphism because it has no gender. It is incorruptible, eternal, unlimitable, unutterable, imperishable, immeasurable, pure, good, and holy. Words like perfection and greatness cannot describe it because it is far greater than perfection and is greater than greatness itself. It is not infinite, but is superior to infinity. It is in a place where time does not exist. Time exists outside of it. It had no beginning and will have no end. It does not look humanoid and does not look like a ball of light either. It is shapeless. It does not look like nothingness and is not nothingness. The way it looks cannot be described by words. It is not spiritual or physical. It is not big or small. Existence and non-existence are both illusions. There is only the one, which is outside of existence and non-existence. Everything in existence is connected to the one. This connection is illusion and everything is connected. We are really all the same being. It's just illusion that we're different beings. We really are the one. It's just illusion that we're not. Because everything in existence is connected to the one, and the one is everything, yet isn't at the same time, because it exists outside of is and isn't. The one sees itself within itself, and sees itself from itself. So everything in existence is just the outside of the one looking at itself. It's an illusion that was separated. Everything in the universe is just different aspects of the one and its reflections, because the one sees its reflections everywhere and looks at itself as within, so without. The one cannot be described by words. It can only be understood if we achieve our spiritual potential and achieve secret knowledge, which is Gnosis, which the Gnostics searched for. The one is like a mind, and everything in existence is its thoughts. The one exists as pure light that no eye can gaze at, and is surrounded by water which was created by it. Then it looked into the waters and saw its reflection. Then its thought became a reality and created a being named Barbelo. Barbelo is usually referred to as a she, but sometimes Barbelo is referred to as androgynous, which means male and female combined. In Gnostic belief, Barbelo is another name for the Holy Spirit. Then the one gazed at Barbelo, then a spark of light came into being, which became Christ, who is Jesus. And many more beings, called eons, came into existence. And they are in a place called the Pleroma, which in Gnosticism is the higher heavenly realm. And here are some of their names, though there are countless other beings that came into existence that are not mentioned here. And also, there are angels in the Pleroma, but these angels are not physical, they're only spiritual beings, and they're also lesser angels that are under the control of the demiurge in Gnosticism. And a being named Adamus, also called Goradamus, comes into existence, and this is a supreme spiritual version of Adam. And from him comes the supreme spiritual version of Set, who is Am's son. From the spiritual version of Set come the rest of the spiritual race of humans. Because human spirits existed before their bodies existed. And they exist in the Pleroma. Most famous of the eons, who are the beings in the higher heavenly realm in Gnosticism, is Sophia. And the word Sophia means wisdom in Greek, and sometimes Gnostic scriptures call her wisdom. This is from the Bible right here, and in the Bible there's a female being who calls herself wisdom, and it says she standeth in the top of the high places, which some Gnostic philosophers interpret as meaning she is above the heavens of the demiurge. Then this being in the Bible who calls herself wisdom says, I was set up from everlasting from the beginning, or ever the earth was, and while as yet he had not made the earth, nor the fields, nor the highest part of the dust of the world, when he prepared the heaven, I was there. So she says she existed before the creation of the world, which sounds like Sophia. Now let's return to the Gnostic creation story. And Sophia wanted something to come into existence like what first existed, and since she has unconquerable power, her thought became a reality, but she did it without her male counterpart, and her desire became like a shadow of darkness, and this shadow of darkness produced a force called chaos. Gnostic scriptures aren't the only thing to mention a force called chaos existing before the creation of the world. Before we get back to the Gnostic creation story, I'm going to show you its similarities to many other creation stories found all over the world, and what chaos is. In many mythologies from around the world, there's a force called chaos that existed before the universe was created that made the gods, because in many mythologies this force called chaos creates the force gods. It's found in mythologies from around the world, though chaos is not exactly a god. It's more of a force of some type, but it can think like one, a little bit. And in Greek mythology, the force to exist was chaos, and force gods came out of this chaos. And in other mythologies too, like some versions of Hawaiian mythology, the forced gods were created by a force called chaos, and in Egyptian mythology it's sometimes said that chaos existed before the world, and in Chinese mythology, at first there was chaos, and out of chaos came an egg which hatched into the god Pengu. So all these mythologies from around the world speak of a force called chaos that existed before the world was created, and it's mentioned in Gnostic scriptures. So it's no coincidence that all these different cultures believe in this. There has to be truth to this. Most mythologies say chaos was the first thing to exist, though in Gnostic scriptures there's all stuff that existed before chaos. And in many mythologies, before the world was created, there's a giant ocean. It's found in more than one mythology. Before the world was created, there's a giant ocean, is what they believe. Many different mythologies say this. And above this ocean is darkness and the force called chaos. Chaos is seen as an empty void that surrounds the universe. And in the Bible, it also says, before the world was created, there was void and darkness. Void is referring to the chaos. And in the Bible's creation story, it says, "And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters." So these waters existed before the earth was created. And in many other cultures, there's a giant ocean that existed before the world was created, and sometimes referred to as the primordial waters. And the Bible also makes reference to waters being created before the world, or being there before the world, because the Bible doesn't say God made the waters. It says He made the firmament and divided the waters. So it only makes sense if something existed before to create these waters. And here, this is from a Gnostic text called On the Origin of the World, and it says, "And the powers that came into being afterward called the shell the limitless chaos. From it every kind of deity was brought forth." So the Gnostics believed in mythological gods. They even mentioned in their texts. They believed in higher beings in the higher heavens, called eons, and also the gods of this world, which are the same ones from mythology, that are in the lower heavens. And Pistis Sophia is a Gnostic text, though it's not found in the Nag Hammadi collection. But there's other Gnostic texts that aren't found in the Nag Hammadi collection. And this is one of them, and in it mentions mythological gods. It mentions Zeus, Aphrodite, who is a goddess, Hermes, and these other ones. And it mentions their existence because they believed in them. And mythological gods are also mentioned in some of the texts found in the Nag Hammadi library, which is the Gnostic texts that were found in Egypt. The Gnostics allowed the worship of more than one god, but they did not worship evil or bad ones. Now let's return. And out of the shadowy chaos came a blob of matter, and Sophia blew the breath of life into it and gave it power and desired it to have a likeness. Then it appeared, and she named it Yaldabaoth, who is the god of the monotheistic religions, and Gnosticism is seen as the bad guy. And because Sophia accidentally created evil, she lost her power and fell into the lower realms. And she covered the being she created with a cloud. And then Yaldabaoth, who is the demiurge, thought only he existed and none else. According to Gnostic scriptures, Moses, who is the guy that wrote the creation story found in the Bible, did not completely understand how the world was created, and it was not God's image that was moving to and fro upon the water. He didn't see his own image. He actually saw Sophia moving to and fro upon the waters. And Sophia eventually repents from the evil she created, then gets her power back and returns to the higher heavenly realms. And then the demiurge creates the earth and heaven out of matter with the power of the word, and divides the waters with a firmament. And then Yaldabaoth, who is the demiurge, creates beings with animal heads called archons, and there are 7 of them, and he creates them out of flame, and they are like other deities. And Yaldabaoth is also referred to as an archon, and not only does he create 7 archons, he also creates 5 demons, and each of the 7 archons he puts in the 7 heavens, and the demons in the underworld to rule over it. In Gnostic cosmology, there are 7 heavens of the demiurge, and above these 7 heavens, there are many other heavens of the eons, called the pleroma. And one of the archons eventually betrays the demiurge and goes to the higher realms. Eros is a Greek god who's mentioned in Gnostic scriptures, and they say that Psyche, his wife, and the daughters of Forethought became enamored of him and poured their blood upon him and their blood upon the earth. And when their blood fell upon the earth, it became the plants and trees of the world, and that's how they say they were formed. And Sophia created the stars, sun, moon, and sky. And the demiurge says, "I'm a jealous god, and there is no god beside me." And the voice comes from the higher realms and tells him that the man exists. And he tries to ignore it by saying, "If there is a man that exists before me, let it show itself." Then the spiritual higher version of Adam appears in the waters above the material world. And then the demiurge becomes disappointed, and he and the archons plan to create a human after the image that they saw of the spiritual version of Adam in the waters above the material world. Right now I'm reading from the Bible, and it says, "And God said, let us make man in our image." Wait, who's God talking to when he says, "Let us make man in our image"? There's another being or beings that helped make Adam? According to Gnostic scriptures, he's talking to the archons, who are the rulers, and they helped create Adam. But not only the archons, also demons and angels. And after Adam's body is created, the demiurge blows some of his breath into its body, Adam's. And when he blows his breath into Adam's body, he becomes weaker because his breath was the same breath that Sophia blew into him when he was created, and now Adam has his power. And later, the spiritual version of Eve, who is called Zoe, comes down to the world to teach Adam secret knowledge and save him. And she goes inside of Adam's body, and the two become one spirit. And now the archons are afraid of Adam because he is more powerful than them. And if you read the Bible, it says Eve was created because God pulls out one of Adam's ribs. The reason this is done in Gnostic tradition is to weaken Adam. When the archons try to weaken Adam, they try to remove the female spirit that went inside of him by taking out one of his ribs, or at least his flesh, and building a woman out of it, and now the spirits are split apart again. And to keep them from being less powerful, the demiurge tells Adam and Eve not to eat from the tree of knowledge. The Gnostics did not believe that the tree of knowledge was bad. The Gnostics searched for secret knowledge. And this is from the Bible right here, and it says, "And God said, let us make man in our image." Wait, let us make man in our image? So there's other beings helping God create Adam? Who is he talking to, though? According to Gnostic scriptures, he's talking to the Archons, who are the rulers, and in Gnostic scriptures, the Archons help him make Adam, but not only the Archons, also demons and angels. And when they create the body, the demiurge blows his breath into Adam's body and loses his power when he does it, because it was the same breath that was blown into him when Sophia created him. And now Adam has power in him. And later, the spiritual version of Eve, who is called Zoe, comes down to teach Adam secret knowledge and save him. And she goes inside of Adam's body, and she becomes one with Adam's spirit. And according to the Bible, Eve is created when God takes a rib out of Adam. In Gnostic tradition, the reason why this is done is to weaken Adam, because now the Archons are afraid of Adam because he is more powerful than them. So they try to weaken him by removing the female spirit that went inside of him, by taking some of his flesh out of him and creating a woman. And then the spiritual version of Eve leaves the body of the earthly Eve and goes into the tree of knowledge. And then, to make them less powerful, the demiurge tells Adam and Eve not to eat from the tree of knowledge. The Gnostics pictured the tree of knowledge as being good, and they sought after secret knowledge. In the Bible it says, God says to Adam and Eve, "But of the tree of knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die." And in the Bible, God says to Adam and Eve not to eat from the tree of knowledge, and says, "But of the tree of knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die." And in the Bible, the serpent, which is the snake, says to Adam and Eve that they won't die when they eat the fruit. And they don't die when they eat the fruit of the tree of knowledge. It's because God is lying in this verse. Because Adam and Eve did not die on the day they ate the fruit, which God says they will die when they ate the fruit of knowledge, but they didn't. So God's lying to keep them from achieving special knowledge. And in the Gnostic scriptures it says, "The snake, the instructor, said, It is not the case that you will surely die, for out of jealousy he said this to you, rather your eyes will be open, and you will be like gods, recognizing evil and good." And this is from the hypostasis of the Archons, also known as the reality of the rulers. So they did not die when they eat of the tree of knowledge, but they obtained knowledge, which is a good thing, so God is lying. And it says, "And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and the tree to be desired to make one wise, so the tree of knowledge made her wise." And there's also thought that the spiritual version of Eve was the one that gave the snake the ability to talk and gave it instructing powers. And this is from the Bible, and it says, "And the Lord God said, Behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil." Who is he talking to when he says us? He's talking to the Archons, and this verse is even reinterpreted in the Gnostic scriptures. And also God says that he knows the difference between good and evil, so if he knows it, why is it something bad? Of course all gods know the difference of something in good and evil. That's just a part of spiritual nature, and now Adam and Eve have received it. Then in the Bible and in Gnostic scriptures, after they eat from the tree, God curses Adam and Eve. And this does not seem like something a true God will do. And according to Gnostic end times prophecies, the Archons will all destroy each other, then the Demiurge will destroy himself, and darkness will become light, and all misery and evil will disappear from existence, and spirits of people will be saved.